A real-life drama, Part 2 ending. Link down below for Part 1. The VAR reported that I scared other man straight and he wants nothing to do with W now. Since the phone has been compromised, I don't care about giving it up. My new approach is, you should go into MC showing an earnest desire and willingness to improve your marriage and make your wife happy. Once conditions are right for it, I'll then say what is it that you need to make this work. Perhaps this will give your wife an out, even if she likely won't take it. Tell them that, once your wife has ended this affair, apologized, and committed to your marriage, you will yourself to be a better husband. But you should maintain that you refuse to stay married to your wife while she is having an affair. If they ask for my source, I will say I looked at her BlackBerry. I know I will need to greatly defend myself on this point, saying I was willing to do anything to protect our marriage. It's not something I'm proud of, but I thought it was justified given all the secrecy. Counseling sessions was interesting. First, the counselor got us to establish the types of people we are and how we might react to fear. Anxiety. I was established to be someone who reacts quickly, does not like the unknown, and who is passionate and fiery. W was described as someone who needs depth, time to think, likes calm, etc. I find a lot of truth to this as we are quite opposite. W's mom told me W spent very early years, 3-0, in therapy to cope with arguments and loud noises. My W definitely needs calm in her life, and she's a much more analytical thinker and practical analyzer compared to B, who's a bit reactionary and emotional. I never felt ganged up on, which is good, but I saw a glimpse of enabling qualities in the counselor when she tried to describe Jess' reaction to her feeling for the other man by saying the relationship was just something that came up. Given the type of person W is someone who needs time to assess and understand the depth of what's happening to her. Bullcrap. I was entirely forthcoming, said I was willing to do whatever it would take to make us work, counseling, listening, talking, etc. I told W I looked at her phone and saw everything. She had a complete breakdown when that was put on the table. Surprisingly, the counselor didn't try to soothe her at all during that and instead continued to talk to me about it. I was honest when I said I felt guilt, shame, and regret for dipping into her private life. However, I felt justified for my actions given the secrecy, lying, and deceit. I also told W in therapy that I called other man. She put on an Oscar-winning performance pretending she didn't know about the call. She knew. VAR confirmed it. She began discussing how it makes her feel like I'm controlling. She also went on to say she was scared, meaning she doesn't know what I'm capable of. I said, look, I'm doing whatever it takes to prevent you from escalating your special friendship to something more, because it would be so much harder to reconcile from that position. Then I said to W, you know already. You two have talked. She denied but asked how, and I spoke about what someone stated earlier in the thread about how she must know given how she tried to protect him in one of our arguments the other night, implying they must have talked. She continued to deny. I asked what she needs in this relationship, and the needs were someone with depth. A partner, someone she could depend on and trust and be mature and reasonable. Rational. I told her I can be all those things and I'd work my hardest to achieve them. She's just not sure if things have gotten so bad that they can be repaired. She finds my investigation to be more of the same, things she doesn't like in me. She continues to imply that my investigation might the straw that breaks the camel's back, and that could be the reason not to continue. Give me a break. Counseling recommend we leave and discuss if we want to continue MC, and recommended we find a new person for MC while W continues IC with her. The big question to both of us was, is this worth it? The R would be lots of work, and we both need to consider if that's something we're willing to do. Honest answer from me. Fine, I'll do it. W is still on the fence though. If she wanted to do it, she'd say it by now, but she wants to take time to think about it. If she truly is the person she is, then it's understandable that she needs quiet, space, and time. She's going away to sis' place for weekend. I know a lot of you will say she might run to other man, but let's see if she really does that first before we cast stones. Okay, after sessions we had dinner and talked a little bit about the meeting and a little bit about the relationship, but the topic of bonding came up quickly, and that dominated the discussion for the remainder of dinner. I think she's super paranoid now, knowing that I know everything. She obviously knows I know what she said about me in the bedroom. I was honest and said I felt she was pretty tame in that area, and I figured that side of her would open up more in the marriage. She went on to say she's not always been like that and that she's had great bedroom experiences. I told her I wasn't a mind reader and that she would need to articulate her needs more as it pertains to a physical thing. I don't think she really knows herself there. Sorry to be so candid, but she likes it on top, controlling. And she likes it super slow. I'm more of a porn star, however. I don't act like it with her because she's done timid so. Instead, it's pretty much the same routine in the bedroom over and over again. I said we could use therapy. One other thing that was discussed when we talked about my recent knowledge was I said I knew she wanted to run off with the guy. I said it would be hard for me to consider running off with another woman and leave you behind without knowing if we connected physically. I implied I still think they had slept together since how she could consider he was so much better than me. I said I wouldn't run off with someone knowing I had an awesome mental connection with them. She didn't have much to say to that. The rest of the evening was uneventful. This morning she asked what we should do. I can tell she's still in the same place and uncertain if this is what she wants. She asked if I contacted her ex since she saw a Google search for him on my laptop. I said no. She asked if I spoke with anyone else and I told her I spoke with her mother but left out the part about the other man. As did her mother. I'm thinking about pulling the VAR tonight before her trip. The topic of monitoring is so hot right now. It doesn't do great work at high speeds with all the noise. She mentioned she didn't know what else I might have in play and threw out the possibility of a GPS. I'm thinking about leaving that in play just to confirm her weekend trip. I would pull everything right now if I knew I could somehow confirm she didn't run to other man this weekend, but I think the GPS is the only way of telling. Someone asked about what the VAR confirmed this week. Here's what. She has the same sing-song story with her friends. It goes like this. Yes, I know what I did is wrong and distasteful. Yes, I had some emotions for some guy but I told H immediately when they started and that was it. It never escalated into anything. It was flirty emails. I can't control my emotions but I can control my reactions. H is so immature. His actions of looking into my phone is just more immaturity. He's trying to control me. I can't live in a cage and come home every night for check-in. H called other man and threatened his job. Side note here. W also tells people I threatened W's job to other man as well. I never did this, but if I did say something like that in the heat of moment, it was mean to scare him, not her. I really don't think I said this though, and he might be playing her. Other man told me right away and was very polite about it. Other man wants nothing to do with me now though, so H got that accomplished. Some other takeaways were that she continues to confide in former divorce attorney and close friend about us. Not surprised here, but remember this was the guy XH got concerned about. If he's such a close friend, maybe I should call him and explain how I'm feeling without exposing myself, since this could be the attorney who comes after me. Maybe call and ask, am I talking to my W's attorney or her friend right now? We made a couple calls to the company to find out what desktop software does. She was very concerned about access to the phone. She also wanted to know how much access I might have seen. One thing I hated hearing was W talking to old high school beau. He's harmless and they're good friends. He's also advised her not to run off with other man. I couldn't hear him on the phone, but he must have asked her what's the guy's name. And she says, the guy I like. That's about as close to I have heard, seen to an acknowledgement of love, interest, etc. I was trying to remember if her sing-song story also includes her wanting to leave. It doesn't always, but I think she was talking to attorney man saying she needs to figure out an exit strategy. She was also talking to him about how to protect OM by calling his boss and painting me to be liar. Have problems. I think I'm already out. Thinking about telling her tonight she can do whatever she wants. Go to your sister's, don't go. I don't care. Considering filing on Monday. W's mom was super weird on the phone. Nothing like yesterday. I told her I don't believe I have to win W back and that it's more about W winning me back. I told her my suspicions were confirmed and felt W wasn't in it anymore. She said I think you're right and then gave me a goodbye like this could be it. Fine. So, a lot has happened since I last updated everyone. We came home from work and had a fight with me. We had an open discussion about us and our issues, and an assuming man would it was complimentary step toward working on us. It's not. Before she came home, I decided I would have a chat with her and then go out, and by going out I'd be a bit vague and maybe play up the idea that I'd be fooling around. I stopped wearing my wedding ring, but she didn't comment on that. So, after our chat I went out late and later came home with a buddy to have a few more drinks. After my friend left, I went to swap VARs in W's car and decided since my W was deep asleep, I would listen to this week's VAR since I wasn't tired. Why ruin a weekend day, right? W continues to have phone calls with attorney, paternal friend guy, high school boyfriend guy, etc. Here's where I'm at with these two. These are her doormat guys who listen and validate everything she says. Enablers. She tells them, oh, my life is so hard. How do I get into these messes? And they lap it up and try to offer her support and advice. Unlike what she thinks of me, these guys listen to her. I will say this, she's not giving them the entire truth. She's not giving anyone the entire truth. So, W called other man. Like usual, they engage in conversation about work, co-workers, etc. Other man must have asked a question about me. I cannot hear him. And here's where I started to finally realize her truths. Some of her comments were, he only knows about the flirty emails he had about the dinner you took me out to. W says, I'm standing by my story that we only go out in group settings with other co-workers. W says, he's seen me talk about you with other friends. W says, he's got nothing on us. This part of the conversation alone got my fueled up to tell her it's over since she's still lying to me about contacting him. He didn't listen to me about not contacting her and they're still engaging in inappropriate behavior. But I kept listening. They were about to hang up, but then he must have got flirtatious with her. What did you say? W said. She continues. No, you'll hear from me, I promise. Yes, I have. They don't care. Worthless and Chump have come up. Do you want me to call you worthless in bed? That was it for me. Maybe he asked if she spoke with family, friends, and she was saying they don't care, and maybe the worthless and Chump stuff was about me. Maybe not. What does it matter? She wants to try calling him worthless in bed. It was 4 a.m. and I had been drinking, but that was it. I woke wife up and said I'm filing for divorce. I was extremely angry, mean, and confrontational. She didn't know what the heck hit her over the head at the point, and for 2 hours I unloaded on her every possible I had thinking about her or talking with other people about her. Her psychological makeup, character. We're all said, leaving any name out of it. I told her I called her XH, I called her garbage, and I told her to go to her sister's and never return, and the papers would be ready on Monday. I went off hard, and she's the type of girl who lets those moments really bother her, and I probably scared her for life. I feel bad, but perhaps it was cathartic for me. In those 2 hours there were a lot of reactions from her. A lot of, what happened? What just happened to make you act like this? I told her I wasn't even going to discuss that. Then, like in times past, she wants to start exploring the transparency thing. I spoke. You want to save this marriage? Quit your job. I'll spare you guys all the details. I said, I don't even care what room you sleep in. I'm going to sleep in the guest room right now and stay the F away from me. She woke me up in the morning, and I think she was trying to catch me off guard. I could tell she somehow got some of her confidence back, and she probed a bit about my sources and what happened. I said, get the F out of here. We're done. I'm filing for divorce, and don't come back. She left, and I called her sister. Like I told my W in the night, I told W's sis what I really thought about her support, and I let her know I knew about her own EA, possible PA. And how could she for a moment give any rational help? Support to someone in W's shoes? I'm sure you've guessed right now that W's sis is just like W, implying my snooping was very harmful, and the things I told W in the night were very damaging. She went on to talk about my W's situation just like my W's therapist talked about witches. This situation, EA, PA, in my W's life just happened or popped up, and since my W's sis and W are reasonable people who are into process, they require time to process and figure out what those feeling situation mean. Please. W's sis started crying when she felt I might say something to her husband about her own dealings. She also tried to convince me that I knew nothing about her life and knew nothing about her emotional affair. Physical affair. She said, my husband and I have adult conversation and talk about lives in mature ways. I replied, so did you tell your H about your special relationship with your AP? She didn't have much to say to that, and the conversation was a loose, so I shut it down. Since she left yesterday morning, there's been no contact. My own inner circle has been informed of what I know, and everyone agrees to cut W loose. My parents are on my side, too. Well, as I write this, W just texted asking, can we talk today? Not sure what to do with that. I am thinking about calling her father, since he's the only person I haven't spoken with. Just like I manned up to ask for his daughter's hand in marriage, I figure I would politely say to him, I have exposed her affair and I will not be in an open marriage. I'm filing for divorce and I'd like her to leave. I loved her. I love you, but this is what I must do. I never meant for this grief to enter into our family, and I hope you respect my decision. One other thing I've learned. I've started to question, why has this happened to me? I've had to live, and girlfriends cheat on me, and now my wife. One thing I heard on the VAR was her telling other man, at least you know how to manage me. And that spoke volumes. Even though my wife is so controlling, she wants a man to tell her what to do, and I have become too much of a nice guy. Period. I need to work on that. Here's my plan. Backup VAR to digital files and save and duplicate in different places. Text wife back later today and say, I'm sorry. I don't know how to handle you like 40, but I do know I won't live in an open marriage. So, I'm divorcing you, and you can be free to call him worthless and bet all he wants. I won't care, because I'll be free of a cheating wife like you. I will not continue this conversation any longer. If you want to come home, I'll put your stuff on the lawn for you so you can take it and leave. Call OM and ask him what he didn't understand about NC. Call W's father and say, sorry, I don't know how to handle W's relationship with other men, but I do know I won't live in an open marriage. So, I'm divorcing W. I loved her. I love you, but I won't tolerate W's confirmed affair. I'm so sorry this happened to our family. Tomorrow, expose OM to employer. Tomorrow, expose W to employer. Tomorrow, expose sister-in-law's H to his W's OM. I feel like doing this to him at work would be better than dropping the bomb now while he's at home with my W and his W. Yes, this is wife's second marriage. First marriage was for 3 years, and her ex-H told me he got taken to the bank. New plan. Backup VAR to digital files and save and duplicate in different places. Ignore all communication. Should we return home? Say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to handle that you like X, but I do know I won't live in an open marriage. So, I'm divorcing you. I won't care, because I'll be free of a cheating wife like you. I'd for you to move out and return my ring. From there I won't engage in any more conversation unless she wants to talk about moving out or giving me my ring. Tomorrow I'll start the legal process and I'll let the attorney sort out all of the exposure tactics, some of which are already mentioned earlier. All of the little tidbits about telling W or OM about the things I know could be a mistake. I think silence is golden here. Once Pia was confirmed, I felt I didn't need to monitor anymore. I'm sitting tight for now, and the idea is to find a lawyer who's interested in exposure. If they're not, I'll deal with it myself. We've only been married a few months. Wife came home mid-afternoon and I got taken by surprise. Door was locked, so she had to knock. I opened and let her in. She was calm. So was I. I was getting ready to head out and I told her so. She asked to talk and I said I'd need 10 minutes first, and then after that I would limit e-conversation to 15 minutes. Once we chatted, she said she wanted to tell me the truth. First, though, she wanted me to promise her I wouldn't tell her boss. I said no. She said she would not come clean then, and I said I was okay with that and I'd be happy to be on my way for evening. Without the agreement, she decided to tell me she's been carrying on with this guy for 6 weeks, but they've never had slept together. The night she messed up, she said they kissed. Since then, they've engaged in dirty texting. She contends they talk about it but don't act on it. She admitted to 3 dates. She went on to say that she wants to work on us after a somewhat heartfelt apology. She would give me complete transparency. I said NC was a must, and she still remains uncertain how to accomplish that. Vi explains to her that the point of NC isn't just for my concerns, but it's necessary so she doesn't fall back into the trap of the emotional affair. I think she's genuinely considering quitting her job, which is a huge considering it's her being. That gets me nervous, since that shows me she actually might do it to fulfill the NC agreement. To that I tell her to take some time to herself to really think about that. I continue to give her out, saying maybe the other man is her soulmate. Maybe she'll be happier with that life. I say think about keeping your job and being with him. Maybe that's what you really want. She's begging me not to file, although later this evening she's asked I file for mediation if I go through with it. I left after the first discussing, and when I came home, we talked for about another 30 minutes of the same issues. Jay went on further to say how damaging this has been on all of our family, and I'm not sure how to turn it around. I gave the guest room and said for her to think about what she wants. I was calm and rational entire time. I said only truths about anything Sage asked me, calling out her collection of doormat men who she confides in about her life struggles, and continuing to see the lawyer tomorrow. I've told W anything could happen and things could change, but Vi made a decision and she needs to do the heavy lifting. She asked me not to see her at work. Overall, she's being submissive and taking the verbal beatings. The truth, from me, but she doesn't have flashes of irrationalities, but she takes them rather quickly. I'm seeing remorse, but, just like I told her, how many days is it going to be before she reverts back to her old ways? I told her Vi seen it happy in several days and Vi seen it happen overnight. I believe that deep down in me I've always been working toward R, even if others see D as the right choice. And, to those here who think D is the best plan, let me tell you this. My closest confidants agree with you. Most believe that the trust has been broken, and I, myself, could never come back from this, so it's best to get it out. Where W's issues need to be worked out on her own, without me, to truly solve them. But, if you read this thread closely, and pay attention to my posts, I've been trying to stop an emotional affair from going physical affair. Of course, none of know whether or not that physical affair occurred, but I took the leap of faith that it didn't, and did whatever I could to protect the marriage so W and I might R. I said from the beginning that I could recover from an emotional affair. Easily. So now that I'm being honest with you, let me give you all an update. Before W mentioned left for work yesterday, I said I felt she only offering up the bare minimum of facts that would just be enough to win me over. I suggested the poly and she immediately said she'd do it if that is what it takes. I kept asking her if she had any more info to tell me about the relationship, looking to hear about non-texting activities, but she didn't offer any, so I triggered and told her to leave for work. She went to knowing I'd be meeting with the lawyer and starting the D process. She called once during the day for an update and I asked she come home at the end of the day to get it. W came home to a calm discussion. She asked I started the legal process and I said yes. I explained how the process works and how many days, at a minimum, it would take. She reminded me she would take the poly. I asked her if working on us, doing the poly, and engaging in post-affair RX is something she really wants to do. Again, I gave her the out that perhaps we're not meant to be. W said she wants to take poly. She also offered to me that she shared the idea with her family and attorney. They thought it was extreme but advised her to do it. I explained to her the poly process, cost, and that she would need to prepare to go at a moment's notice, so she said she's given me dates that would not work for her so I could work around those. She apologized profusely and cried and showed genuine remorse. She continued to tell me that their meeting to meet up failed, that she never slept with other man, that, yes, she engaged in distasteful physical conversation, texting with other man, and she regrets all of it. She was honest in sharing with me her concerns over my problems in the 50% of the marriage that I'm responsible for. I have done those things and I'll accept them. She took full responsibility that the affair was 100% her fault. Next, We talked about NC and she offered to quit her job. I said that would be something that shows me she's willing to R, but we touched on some gray areas here. First, looking long-term for us post a possible R and onto the road to happiness. Her current job could be the cash cow and that makes us extremely wealthy and financially secure. Is that happiness? Probably not, but if I'm going to take a practical look at things, I'm going to consider the loss of it in our lives. I'm also looking at the fact that our relationship could be so much better without it. She's addicted to work, so making a big change like this could be beneficial overall and fix issues beyond the affair. So, what we're looking at is 1. She quits the job to engage in NC, or 2. The gray area idea, as I call it. One suggestion was to put a new account manager on the client so W would not have to work directly with other man. Because W is so high up at work, it's necessary for her to be on group emails with the client. Other man would be forwarded as well. She also told me she will continue to get group meeting invites where the other man is included also. The idea of the new account manager would put a layer in between her and the client and the other man. New manager would work directly with client and then feed work-related emails to W asking for decisions, and then new manager would feed info back to client, and I guess other man if he's involved. W also agreed to have a sit-down with new client manager, including me at that sit-down, to discuss the affair and explain why we're doing this and what the new manager's position would be in this. Another idea I suggested was outing other man at work and having him fired. I honestly told her how sinister that would be and that it's a pipe dream, but I was putting it on the table. She didn't agree. She did tell me though, and my reports prove this to be true, that other man is looking for another job. Not sure how long that will take, but that might help NC as well. After I asked, we listened to recovering from the affair. She listened intently and cried a lot, but she made it all the way through and agreed with Lee's sentiments. I think it was great for her to hear, from a third part, about how affairs happen, how fogs are created, and why NC and transparency must occur for our listening to me tell her that has so far been ineffective, but the audio seemed to sink in with her. I asked we read his ebook together and I'm considering taking her to see him. Next, we talked about the NC letter. I gave her a sample NC letter and a pen and paper. She agreed to write it. I gave her time, space to write the NC letter, and when I came back it was fairly good. She asked how I wanted to execute it and I asked we call other man on speakphone and get it done. Now, she seemed scared and hesitant to do that. She then pointed out the work issue and, like the letter included via a placeholder. She said she wanted to have only one communication with other man that was all inclusive of the NC agreement and how things would proceed at work. Since the work issue is not confirmed, I agreed we could sit tight on it for a bit. After that, W supplied me with all her online account info. This morning I've checked in and work emails have received a massive purge, so not much to see there. Spending habits confirmed W's trip to sisters and nothing unusual or out of the ordinary there. Next, we discussed intimacy. I've taken it upon myself to find intimacy questions that help couples contend with intimacy issues. I told her that, and I told her how I knew she engaged in that sort of question answer stuff with her first husband. Intimidatingly, I always thought it was cheesy and never wanted to do it, but I was wrong. We talked about our needs. Then we engaged in a bonding that attempted those needs. Although some of it was exciting, some of it was awkward, but it ended with her being better satisfied compared to our previous session, and I left it feeling great. We took a break from talking about us, but later W wanted to know what the heck happened Friday night. What did I learn, and how did I learn it, that set me off so hard? I didn't know what to say to that, but she got a quick call at that moment which gave me time to think. I made up a story that said I had access to his phone records and saw that he was continuing to call her. Dumbest story I could come up with. Yes, she bought it though. At first, she told me he should know he's been compromised, but I told her I would be arrested, so she agreed not to. So dumb, I know. Would love to repair this if I could and admit to lying and create another story. Am I being just as bad as her here? She asked I not tell her boss, and I said I wouldn't make any promises. She thought about that for a minute and then decided to come clean anyway. I put that in quotes only because none of us know her truths. That's when she told me about the dates, the sneaking around, the kiss, the texting, etc. Another thing I didn't mention before was I found a list in her bag this morning. First, it included a list of the big fights we've had and why we had them. Next, it included the 4 dates they had via date. The first date was not detailed with anything. The second date said kiss and the last 2 said work, drinks. It also included a short paragraph about her actions. Something like, started a relationship, started talking about physical things, met with therapist immediately, went to MC. After the date list, it had a list of what her needs, wants in a relationship are, and I can't quite remember the last list, but if I had to guess, it was a list about me. Can't remember if the list was saying what I might need to improve or what positive I bring to the relationship. Quick update. Other man started work-related email chain today. W stayed out of it completely, however other man took his work cronies off chain. After a few back and forth, and start getting flirty with W and her female co-worker that were still left on the chain. W has stayed strong, offering no response. However, her co-worker continued to engage a bit. Then he starts calling out my W and making jokes about her with W's co-workers, trying to get her to engage. Props to my W, but this dude is a predator. B is crazy. W called to make small talk while driving. Started talking about us. She rescinded most of what she promised last night. Won't call other man on speakerphone. Won't quit job. She outright told me she didn't think she'd have to. Won't do the sit down with the parents to talk about what happened. Her sister and mom said they won't take part. Won't take poly. Wants to find compromises for all actions. I keep saying these are must-have for me to continue. That's not a good enough answer for her. I'm done. Filing tomorrow. Not going to out others either. Going to hold those as bargaining chips for D proceedings. I think they'll help get what I want in the settlement. I can always expose after. 2. I pulled VAR Friday. No clue about that. Toxic mom and sister Def talked her down. I threatened to call other man and she gave him a text warning. I'm only talking to her about divorce proceedings at this point. She keeps asking me not out her to her boss, or out her sis. Update. Wife begged to not take her down. 10 minutes later, wife said she'll quit job. I don't get it. I gave it my best shot and it was a wild ride. When she came home saying she wasn't prepared to R based on the R script, I knew it was over. The 180 is here. I want you all to know that I'm no longer bargaining for R, it's D all the way. No need to expose W, sister-in-law, OM unless D proceeding warrants such needs. And, even if they don't, I still have the option. Wife is out of the house and living with a friend. Not sure when she'll come back. I'm going to move her items into the guest room and pack up her things that are in common areas so I can start moving on. I'm going to finish Save the Marriage since I only have about a quarter of the way to go. Then I'm going to finish No More Nice Guy. I'm going to find a therapist and maybe even a D therapy group. Wife left the house to shack up with co-worker midweek. Didn't communicate with wife until yesterday afternoon. She headed to be with family for the long weekend. She's still talking with other man. Keeps asking if NC and quitting job is what I need her to. I asked her what she wants and she says she doesn't know. I've started legal paperwork and I asked her to meet with the marshal to get served. 180 hard right now. Moving on. W returned to house yesterday. To remind you all, she left Wednesday to live with a friend and then went to her parents for the long weekend. Upon her return, I got the remorseful, crying version of my W who begged me not to D her and said she'd do almost anything to reconcile. She's agreed to NC letter, call and digital transparency. She won't quit her job. I don't think that's best for either of us, but will implement the middleman strategy described earlier in this thread. She said she would call me immediately if the other man contacted her outside of work and she will not engage in any non-business contact. She said she would still take the poly as I want it. I think that's extreme. She's agreed to hardcore MC at any cost and she's willing to read infidelity books. I'm not sure what I should do here. I told myself I'd file no matter what she said when she came home, but I feel there's a genuine R here. She says she did not sleep with the guy. I'm wondering if I should ease up and go through some R motions with her over the next month and see what happens. A week later, W returned from long weekend with the same old song and dance only to return to her ambivalence after a day or two. We saw a new MC but W continues to be in one day and out the next. I served her the D papers before the weekend. She's moved out to stay with friends. She says she's taking the poly on her own though. Weird. She also keeps asking if the D is for real. It is. FWIW. I'm not exposing other man, W, or Sil right now. Those are bargaining chips for D proceedings. Taking the other man out now could jeopardize W's career. If W loses job during D, I could be held liable and have to pay out. D papers were served Friday. Then NC, but W stopped by house to get clothes Sunday. Been NC since then as well, but not W is texting me asking me for sit down. I've been NC. W's mom is now calling me to relay messages. I'm NC with her as well. Should I respond at all? I called her back and W asked if we could meet to talk tomorrow, so I asked what she wanted to talk about as I've been doing all the talking. I added that it was ridiculous that she gets to carry on with other men and then tell me she needs time to decide on things. W contends this is all very difficult for her and she doesn't want to regret losing me. She keeps asking if we can go to a professional to help us mediate the R terms since the poly is so extreme to her. She also wants to keep her job. Next, she did an unannounced pop-in. She was talking to me from car. She continued on with her R ideals. I told her I've seen this time and time again and I just don't believe her. How am I to know she'll flip again in another 24 hours? Half a year later, we tried to work on things for most of the remaining year, but one day she said she couldn't do it anymore. I can't sit here and say that happened out of blue given the big picture. However, it seemed out of the blue given that things were going well for us. We can all sit here and talk about why that finally happened, but it's not worth it. She has moved out. It's been about a month and I'm good with that. I did everything I could. The moral of the story here, listen when people tell you to serve the paper. My comment, I don't mind the husband is still in a fog, but please, if she left your house, make it stay that way. OP only stopped chasing her when she tapped out. She couldn't handle the guilt, or she has a second affair. Anyways, save yourself in your relationship. It's the only way. If you like this story, sub and bell. There is also a second Love TV channel. Link down